Welcome to another jam-packed episode of the Sports Card Nation podcast, the show that brings you all the important news from the sports card hobby. We'll have some debates, opinions, new release schedules, and info. Plus, we'll also discuss the sports that so directly affect the hobby we all love. We'll mix in an occasional gambling tip or two, throw in some life stuff, and bring you great guest interviews from the hobby and sports dignitaries. And if you're good listeners, we may even give away a few things now and then. Now, here's the guy who wanted the cards and not the gum, John Newman.
Hello, Newman. Hello, Newman. Hello, Newman. Hello, Newman. Hello, Newman. Hello, Newman.
Hello, Sports Card Nation. Episode 20. 20 in the books now. How crazy is that? In a sense, 5 months. We do one each week. Where we are here at 20 compared to 1 is night and day, truthfully. I don't even remember it anymore. I have to go back and listen to it. But again, thank you for joining us. Kind of a different episode today. If you've listened to the show, you know I've tried to accentuate the positive in the hobby, the bright spots of the hobby, and I'll always do that. But one of the things when I started the program that I said to myself, while doing that, I also don't want to just act like that's the only thing going on in the hobby, that it's all good. Because we all know, truth be told, that's not the case. There's some bad aspects to the hobby or negative connotations. And those are always going to be there, whatever they may be. And one of the things we're going to report today kind of is that. And what made me think about it a little bit more this past week was having Brody the Kid on last week. And I hope you heard that show. And if you haven't, go back and listen to it. Brody's 11 years old, a great advocate of the hobby, intelligent for his age. And the stuff you want to see, you know, that next group of kids is the next generation that's going to carry this torch forward. And if there's a lot of kids like Brody that we don't know about, then we're gonna be all right. And my fear is there may not be enough. And I'm not trying to be doomsday, like I said on the program itself. Cards are always going to be around, but to what extent? Is there going to be a market correction? Is there going to take a step backwards? Is there going to be another dark period or another junk wax era type of market correction type of deal? I don't know. We can all play devil's advocate and analyst and Wall Street predictor, but there is another aspect of the hobby with teens that I've noticed over the last couple years, and it's really not a good one. So we're going to broach that subject today. I'm going to be brutally honest and keep it real. There may be some that really don't like what I have to say or maybe not agree across the board, but isn't that really what podcasts and shows and are about? You don't always want to agree, or you want to kind of things are up for debate. So we're going to broach some of that with the youth of the hobby and where we're going and things I've observed in person and online, and maybe it's some things you've seen too. And we'll kind of compare notes over the podcast, if you will, on that as well. But also we're going to talk about some good things too. The show will always remain free. We'll never ask you for donations like some other programs do. We're self-sustained. We have a few sponsors that do help. That's always nice. But even without sponsorship, I would never ask a listener to PayPal me, donate money. That's not what we're here for. So we provide hopefully some free entertainment, some good stuff. The other nice thing about this program, if I can toot my own horn, if you allow me to, is the show is like clockwork. Every Friday morning, a new episode will be out. So it's like that morning paper you expect at the same time, whatever day you get it. That's kind of what this podcast hopefully has become for you. A new episode every Friday. I think 1 week we didn't have that due to, I believe, the Christmas holiday. And that may happen every once in a while. I'd give you advance notice. So, God willing, Every Friday morning, there'll be a new episode of the Sports Nation podcast. So with that being said,
And here we go.
we love hearing from our listeners. Without you, there is no us. We encourage your thoughts and feedback, and we do care about what you think. We encourage you to reach out to us at any of our social media accounts, and they are as follows. You can get a hold of us on Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast. That's all one word, Sports Card Nation Podcast. Or our Twitter, which is at Sports Card Natty1, Sports Card NATI1. Or if you go to Facebook, you can search Sports Card Nation Podcast. That's 4 words, and you'll find us. Or you can email the show at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. Also, please give us a follow. We really do appreciate that. Thank you. Brooklyn Breakers run their company with the fun of the hobby in mind. They have some of the lowest priced breaks, many as low as $19.99 a spot. Every spot is guaranteed an autograph card, so there's no way for you to get skunked. From mid-tier to high-end, Brooklyn Breakers have you covered. No one goes hitless ever. Check out their specials and offerings at brooklynbreakers.net or at Twitter at Brooklyn Breakers. That's at BKLYN Breakers, or on Facebook at Brooklyn Breakers. Brooklyn Breakers, where the hits just keep on coming. All right, it's time for What's Crackin'. All right, time for the hobby report. And a story just breaking, and before I report this, I want to preface it by saying that reports are in their early stages, so let's not rush to judgment. But Greg Lindbergh, founder of the multinational company Eli Global, which is the parent company of Beckett Media, has been federally indicted on bribery charges relating to Republican and Democratic campaigns in the state of North Carolina. Again, this story is pretty fresh. Let's let the dust settle. We'll see how this turns out. And as far as how it affects the hobby or Beckett, again, it's too early to tell. But a lot of times in these cases, if a CEO or someone like that goes away, they're just replaced. It's definitely a black eye. But I don't think it affects, it's not really hobby related, it's just someone in the industry itself. So I don't think this is going to hinder anything with Beckett. It's just probably not a good look. So again, we'll see how this all shakes out when everything settles out. On to some more positive things. If you follow baseball, you see that a few teams are bucking the trend with sending high-level prospects down to gain an extra year of player control over them. And what the trend is going now is they're keeping them up, they're making the team, and they're renegotiating a new deal for a long term. Guys like Brandon Lowe have done that. Scott Kingery did it last year. Eloy Jimenez just did that, and he stayed up with the club. Fernando Tatis Jr. stayed up with the Padres and hit his first home run the other night. And Pete Alonso did that with my own favorite team, the New York Mets, and he's really on a tear early on, and his cards are right now going through the roof. They're already sort of on the rise, and now with him playing super well, even more meteoric with all his autos and Bowmans and whatnot. I do have a few Bowman Platinum autos that I'm debating maybe selling or waiting on. I haven't decided yet. But a lot of these guys, the trend's being bucked that we, these teams send them down and then call them up 3-4 weeks later to get that extra year control. They're keeping them up now and just renegotiating their deals for longer terms. So maybe that'll be the new trend every year, and we'll get to see these 5-star prospects sooner, quicker, and longer. We'll have to see. Saw an interesting article. The Seattle Mariners are going to do a Ken Griffey Jr. bobblehead, which probably not a surprise. He's probably the face of the franchise, legendary player, Hall of Famer. But what's interesting about this bobblehead is it's going to be in the likeness and based on the iconic 1989 Upper Deck Griffey Jr. rookie card number 1. So the bobblehead's really going to be a play off that card. So that'll be interesting to see. It'd probably be a cool thing to get, even if you weren't necessarily a bobblehead collector, just based on the fact that it sort of has a card connotation from one of the hobby's most iconic modern day cards, the 89 Upper Deck number 1 Griffey Jr. So we'll see what that looks like. Topps trying to stay innovative and come up with new, some people might call them gimmicks, some other people might call them innovations. I might fall in between both of those, but the newest innovation, if you will, is a product called Topps Future Now. It's sort of like the Topps Now, but the difference with these, it's a 90 card, will be a 90 card set. They'll release 3 cards at a time. And then, like I said, they're similar to Topps Now cards, but these Topps Future Nows will have a scratch-off code in the back, and all 30 teams will be represented, and if you believe that team is going to win the World Series, you scratch off that code on the back, enter it now at Topps.com, and if that team does indeed wind up winning the World Series, you win a special limited edition numbered set. Kind of a cool idea. It'll be interesting to see, how many people scratch off and enter what these sets will be numbered to. And it reminds me, I don't know, I'm old, so I remember. Does anyone else remember back in the day, Stadium Club used to do the team cards? And if they did them in basketball, I believe in baseball, and if that team won the championship, you turned that card in and won a special embossed set. I remember those, and the cards would sell based on the likelihood of that team winning. So back in the day, if you got like a Lakers team card and they were kind of a favorite at the time to win the NBA title, that card would go for more money based on you'd win a free set out of it. I remember back in my store days, these were big sellers, especially the basketball ones. So this kind of reminds me, these Topps Future Now, sort of like that. We'll see, if it catches on, how big of a hit it is. We talked a little bit about the living set on the show a few weeks back with Mike Summer from Wax Pack Hero, who does a lot of research with those. I've kind of faded off on them. I still love the idea. I just really haven't bought anymore after buying a lot initially. I've tried to keep as best tabs on it as I can. I've noticed some of the numbers probably are dwindling, so it'll be interesting to see where that goes. But it seems like Topps is always trying to sort of reinvent itself or come up with something else. You got the Montgomery Club and Future Now, and you go to the merchandise section, they got 101 paintings and 8x10 cards and the custom cards, and so no shortage of products or innovation come out of the Topps. Some people argue it's not great stuff. Others will say give it time. It is. We'll see. But I wanted to let everyone know about these Topps Future Now cards. 90 cards, winning cards. If that player's team wins the World Series and you scratch off the back and enter the code, you're going to get a serial numbered set. Another product soon to come out, Panini Legacy Football. And I got to say, I seen kind of the shot sheet for these, and you can say what you want with Panini football products. Some people don't like them. I kind of fall in the middle and judge each release on its own accord rather than paint them with a broad brush. But I seen these Panini Legacy football cards on the shot sheets, and I gotta say, I really like them. They're crisp. They're a lot of white kind of color. I don't know. I guess I have a little bit of a thing for a lot of white on cards. It's kind of sharp looking to me when you contrast the color of the uniforms and whatnot. So they reminded me, I believe, of the 2005 Topps football, Aaron Rodgers rookie year. It kind of has a look like that, but they're really, to me, sharp looking. If you can search for it, see what it looks like, see what you think, and I'd love to hear your feedback. But sometimes I'll see a product, and just based on looks, I'll say, man, I got to open some of that stuff, and that's kind of what when I saw these, that's kind of what popped in my head. Like, I'm definitely going to open some. It's really kind of a sharp looking card, one of the nicest ones, at least on paper, that I've seen in a while. So Panini Legacy Football, we'll see how that what that's all about when it comes out. So if you heard last week's podcast of the Sports Card Nation, episode 19, you heard a young man named Brody the Kid, 11 years old, great advocate of the hobby. This young man does his own video blogging. He does a written blog for Big League Breaks. He gets to the National and does some video blogging from there. He's the top scholar kid and just a bright young man. And if you've listened to my show, that one of my things is I love the fact that, the kids that can still partake and enjoy this hobby, even though it's gone down some different alleys than the hobby I remember as a young man or a young kid. And, as much as a great story that Brody is, that you love to see, there's that other side of that coin that, sometimes we don't talk enough about, but I think it's an important enough topic that I wanted to take this episode and kind of broach it. It's what I said in the intro, that with the podcast, yes, we want to highlight all the great aspects of this great hobby, and the hobby is great. Don't read into what anything I'm going to say on this segment to change that. But there is sort of a seedier side. It's like every city, you got your nice neighborhood and your more expensive section, and the well-to-dos, and then you got your seedier side of town, so to speak. And I think the hobby sort of has that too, in different aspects. It's not just one thing. We know about the scammers and people not sending after getting payment, and forgers and forgeries, and all that. We don't have to beat a dead horse, but there's also another side. And as a dad, if you heard the show, my son Jordan, he's 19. He does collect cards. He's not really obsessed with it. I think he does it more because of what I do and that sort of thing, and my hobby background. But he's a huge sports fan, so that always helps when it comes to cards and whatnot. He'll buy some packs, he'll rip some stuff open, and then he'll go weeks without even thinking about it too. So he's not really fully entrenched as some are. And I've done this for many years. I do shows. I have an online presence on Instagram, Twitter, not just on the podcast side, but even on my Newman Sports Card side. And I notice some of these kids in their teens, and maybe I notice it more, truth be told, because I'm a father. Maybe if I wasn't a father, or I was even a little bit younger, I'd kind of turn more of a cheek to it, or not even think about it too much. But I notice, I'm on quite a bit just between the show and my side business and that sort of thing. I'm on social media a lot. Even my own son at 19, who still lives at home, he's getting ready to go off to college and live on campus. But he lives at home, and sometimes he'll tell me, Dad, you're always on your phone. Put your phone down, man. You're crazy. It's funny. Here's a 19-year-old kid telling me, a 46-year-old man, I'm on my phone too much. But he's right to a point, and I've made more of a concerted effort not to be as much on my phone as sometimes am. But I'm on a lot to promote the show, different posts and that sort of thing. And, being said, I'm 46 years old. I'm married 20 years. So Friday nights, Saturday nights, I'm probably at home spending time with family, maybe pulling the phone out and posting something and whatnot. And I notice a lot of the teens today, and this is what I want to broach here with this topic, are constantly on social media, and these card teens even more so. They're posting, they're doing Instagram lives, showing their cards, talking about cards. And I see both sides to it. I know there's going to be people to say, well, John, at least they're not out doing drugs or drinking and driving or doing stuff that maybe some other kids their age might be partaking in that is a lot more dangerous. And yes, I agree 100% with that. There's a lot worse things they could be obsessed with or involved with that could be dangerous to their health, well-being, and safety. No doubt. You'll get no argument from me there whatsoever. But one thing I notice, it's like certain facts, these teens, some of them, it seems like they're always on. They're always on there. They're always posting. And I guess it's hard to compare me at 15, 16, 17, because it was so long ago. You were talking 28, 30 years ago, before the advent of social media wasn't even around. It's like the old meme you see making the rounds. We knew where the hangout was by all the bikes in front of that house. There was no cell phones, where you at, texts, or anything like that. It was where that pile of bikes was piled up in front of that house. And there's not a lot about that will change. I'm actually glad I grew up during that era because I loved it. I don't know if I'd want to grow up as a kid today, as great as it is, and I enjoy partaking in the technologies that we do have nowadays, sometimes too much, as my son will point out to me. But it just seems like the kids nowadays, a lot of them get kind of engrossed in something, whether it's cards or Dungeons and Dragons or Magic or whatever the case may be. And it's like they don't do anything else. And I guess that's where my concern and that's where my fear comes in, is how it might affect them socially. When I was a kid, we went to all our friends' house. We played pickup football, pickup baseball. We were social. We could conversate. I could conversate with my friends' parents if I was over there for dinner and sitting at their dinner table, and they were asking me how's things, how's my grandma, my grandfather, how's school, and we could have these conversations. And it seems like today's generation, and again, I'm probably going to sound like the old man on the porch here, but it's like today's generation and kids don't have those social skills like the kids from my era did. And I'm not painting with a broad brush. I'm not saying all of them. They're very mature and intelligent kids. Again, Brody last week, I think, embodies that. But there's a segment of the hobby in the teenage group that it's like they're just so entrenched with that. And I'm going to be honest with you, without naming names, there's a couple kids right here in the central New York area that I know from an online presence and because they're in this area and I see them at shows. They almost have like two personalities. You see them online and they're getting fresh or kind of mouthy in text dialogue on a thread or a message board or an Instagram message, and then you see them in person and they're completely different. And there's a few that I'm specifically thinking of. Like I said, I'm not going to mention names, but behind that keyboard, I see kind of what they write and how they communicate with other collectors and hobbyists. And then I know them a little bit, and they'll come to my table at a show, and they'll mumble, and they look down at their feet when they talk. And I'm not trying to be mean, but their social skills are a little behind. Forgive me for saying. And I just say, it's sort of sad to me that, you know, cards are not life. As much as we love them and we're passionate about them, those that are in the older generation know that, we have to work, provide for those. If we have a family, provide for ourselves and our family. Cards are an important aspect of our hobby life. But, there's a time when we set that aside and focus on the really important stuff. And I worry about this next generation, and especially in this teen age bracket, that they're not ready. And I hope I'm wrong. But I'm really worried that the cards are so entrenched in the cards and that sort of thing, and it's affecting them socially, that when the real world hits, they always say, it's like I told my own son as a graduate of high school and get ready for college. His life really is going to start now, man. I'm not trying to scare him, but, you graduate high school. I can even remember my own time graduating high school, and it was a scary time. I was nervous. Like, things were changing. I really got to kind of fend for myself more than ever. There's kind of no leeway anymore. And I believe that to be true. And you worry that some of these kids, that they're so engrossed in the hobby, it's affecting their social skills. They can't communicate on the same level as someone maybe not involved in the hobby that goes out and do things. They're coming home from school and they're probably jumping right on the computer and trying to make deals and sales and trades. And that tough person persona, behind the keyboard, and then in person, they can't match that personality. So again, it's just something I've noticed. I've seen it firsthand, and I say to myself, it can't be a central New York thing. This has to be, if I'm seeing it here, I'm sure it's happening other places as well. And as a dad, as someone who cares about the hobby, as a parent, as a father, you worry about kids. It's funny, you always worry about kids. I think it's just kind of a inherent trait. But when you become a dad, I think it goes up a level, goes up a notch. And I've always been someone that cares about the youth and the next generation and leaving the world a better place for the next group. And I'm probably like a lot of older people, I'm sort of worried about the next group of hobbyists. And I'm not talking about, even if you've heard what I've said so far, I'm not even talking about necessarily the hobby worrying about. I'm worried about them in life, because there's so much behind a keyboard or on their phone. They're not getting out and socializing, that it's affecting them. And like I said, I've seen it with kind of the few kids that I know on a personal level in this area that are really heavily in the cards, and what their persona online and their persona in person are not even close. And I just worry about the long-term repercussions of those sort of mismatches and those sort of things. And the other thing, again, it's like comparing apples to oranges, but, we've had this conversation on the show before. Obviously, the products that I opened up and were available to me as a 14, 15, 16, and 17-year-old, we can name them. That's how little or few there were. 89 tops at 17 years old, 88 Donruss, 88 tops. At the time they were more exciting than they obviously are now. But there wasn't all the numbered cards and colors and autos and first Bowman chromes and all that stuff we have now. And the other thing that makes me sort of sad with the kids in the hobby is, if you grew up in my era, I think you'll know where I'm going here. We enjoyed opening the packs and pulling a Greg Jeffries rookie card or a Tom Glavine rookie card back in 88, 89, John Smoltz and the Bill Ripken era. We all know that one. The hunt for that, to try to pull it, and there wasn't all the glitz. There wasn't these really high dollar cards, the Vlad Guerrero Bowman Chrome autos that now Baker Mayfield reaching $6,000 and those sort of things. And, even the Tom Brady back in the day, we all know, he wasn't a superstar at first. So those things, I put those in my dollar box at shows and sold them. Boy, I'd like a do-over there. But, the kids now, it's you see them open a pack, whether it's on YouTube or on Insta Live or Twitter Live, and they're just ripping these packs like super quick. They're not even doesn't even seem like they're enjoying the process or savoring, doing it. And they're just, if they don't get a big hit or a decent hit, they're just throwing the base cards to the side like they're absolute garbage. And sometimes you hear them make a comment that, that garbage. And I don't know, I guess I grew up in the hobby era where you kind of appreciated each card for its own merit. And yeah, let's be honest, anyone that opens a pack, whether it be in 1989 or 2019, you want to get the best pull you can get. I don't think times have changed in those terms. But I think, the older collectors seem to appreciate everything that pack or product had to offer, and now it's just the adrenaline of getting that card to flip, to resell, to buy the next product. And it's just a different game. I get it. I still enjoy the hobby. The hobby is great. I like I said in the intro, don't take anything during the segment as to say the hobby stinks or it's terrible. It's not. I don't feel that. But there are certain aspects of the hobby, truth be told. I think we could all say this, It's not a utopia. It's not all, violin music and sweet smelling flowers. And I think we're, talking about some of the ills or the not so hot things of the hobby makes us appreciate the great things of the hobby, the great people doing charitable things and giving back, and Kedarty cards and, signature for soldiers and, Houston memorabilia, and the list goes on and on. We could be here all night if I listed everybody doing great things in the hobby, which is why the hobby's great. But I think we also have to talk about, there's two sides to every coin. And I think we need to sometimes talk about the not so great side, sometimes to appreciate the great side even more. So, I honestly debated even bringing this up as a topic on episode 20 here. I thought, man, is it going to be taking us too negative? John's being harsh, he's embellishing it. It's he just had Brody the Kid on. It was a great story, and now he comes back with this aspect. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about how this would be received. But the more I thought about it, I said, I don't want to be someone that sugarcoats things and doesn't talk about those things, or everything's roses, because everything's not roses. Everything's not roses in people's personal lives or job life or employment, and different things like that. And I think we have to acknowledge and in a sort of way embrace sometimes some of the negative things that do go on in the hobby, and to appreciate the great things and the beautiful things. So I decided to go ahead and do this segment this week on episode 20. I'd honestly love to hear what you feel, what you think. Am I off base? Am I wrong? Are you not seeing some of the things I touched on where you're at? Again, I'm in central New York, okay? I do travel a little bit and do some shows, but I don't go as far away as I once did. So I'm kind of in the central New York area here, and these are just some observations from that neck of the woods. Now, again, a lot of the stuff I see online are kids that are across the nation and that sort of thing too. So it's not just really a central New York thing. So, I want to hear from you, reach out via our social medias, email, private message, direct message, agree, disagree. Is it something you see or concerned with, or you acknowledge, John, you're right. I see the same thing. Or no, John, you're wrong. I think you're making a mountain out of a molehill. I think you're making too big of a deal of it. Tell me. That's what this show's for. It's to debate and talk about things. So am I wrong? Am I right? Are you seeing something else maybe I didn't talk about that you'd like to, hear discussed on the show in a future episode or what have you? I love to hear it. As someone, like I said, who's concerned about the hobby, not just as a person who's been involved in the hobby since 1979 as a 7-year-old, but even as a dad of a son who, yes, is involved in the hobby too. I always look to that next generation and see how they're doing. So that's where this is coming, not to get all cheesy, but this is coming from a place of love, as odd as that may sound. I root for that next group coming up so they can carry the torch and the baton forward in this great hobby of ours. So it's time for another giveaway on the Sports Card Nation podcast. This week's giveaway is going to be 6 cards of newly minted Yankees legend, first time ever unanimous Baseball Hall of Famer, all-time saves leader, Mariano Rivera. It's going to be 6 cards, some base cards, inserts. Some are harder to find. Nice little package, again, for free. To whoever gives us the keyword, and that keyword is going to be unanimous. Unanimous. So private message us, direct message us, email the word unanimous, and you will be entered for the 6-card Mariano lot. Everyone who gets that correct entry, I'll put on the list. I'll randomize and roll dice. We'll randomize that list as many times as the dice tells us to, and whoever's in that one spot after randomization is going to take home the Mariano. So again, that keyword, unanimous, get that to us to be entered for the Mariano lot. Thank you and good luck. Have a business or event you'd like to promote or highlight? Become a show sponsor. For a very affordable cost, we can highlight your company or business, either on the podcast or on our website or both. So whether you're a dealer, a breaker, or any other business, we really would love to work with you. Contact us at any of our social medias or email us at sportscardnationpc@gmail.com. That's sportscardnationpc, all one big word, @gmail.com. We look forward to working with you. It's time for From the Box Seat. In the sports world, the hot button topic is the American Alliance of Football has passed away. Yep, they are done. I think this came as sort of a shock, even to me. Even though I like the product on the field, I don't want to say I told you so, because I wouldn't go that far. But I did have a feeling like this wasn't going to last maybe 1-2 seasons. But to be closed up shop this quick does surprise me. It was doing pretty good, at least initially. It was being run by Bill Polian, who's a Hall of Fame executive, and some NFL former stars. So it seemed like the right people in the place to be successful. Some of the new rules that they implemented, the NFL's now thinking about doing, so it's sort of innovative in its own right, but they just couldn't make revenue. I'm not going to get into the politics with the investor Donald from the Hurricanes owner. A lot of people are saying it's his fault. I don't know if it's any one person's fault. Maybe it is. I don't know all the details. I'm not in the back rooms with the door closed hearing what's going on. It's kind of sad, because it did start out well, and sometimes we forget when a business closes or an entity shuts its doors, people are out jobs, and yes, they're football players, and maybe people, you don't look at that as a job, but for probably a majority of these guys, this was how they're paying their bills, and now they're going to have to find some way else to do it, whether they can land a job in the NFL or Canadian Football League or whatever else they can do, maybe high school coaching and whatnot. It's a tough situation for those involved in the league, especially if you're not Bill Polian and you're not set for the rest of your life. So, it's ironic. Johnny Manziel joins the league, and a week later, it's defunct. I guess you can use the hashtag blame Johnny. Maybe we can start that one. But, now I'm reading reports that the league's going to refuse paying medical bills for people that were hurt during games, and hotel bills are going to be charged to the players. And I really hope that doesn't happen, because then we're going to have all the lawsuits, and it's just going to be, a not so fun thing. So I hope all that stuff kind of clears itself up. And if anything good comes out of it, if maybe the NFL takes a page with the Sky Judge or some of the other rules that the AAF employed, maybe that'll be the silver lining in what looks to be a dark cloud. Bryce Harper making his presence known in Philadelphia, off to a torrid start, and it's funny when a guy, a huge persona like that, changes teams as a free agent, and you always circle the calendar with the first time they're going to go back to their old home stadium and play against their old team. And it always seems, usually when it happens, it's always later in the year. You kind of have to wait for that first time. But being he stayed in division and went to Philadelphia, that first time back in Nationals Park was the first week of the season. So pretty much the third or fourth game in, Bryce made his appearance in an opposing uniform in his old home stadium. And as expected, he got roundly booed. And he struck out his first two at-bats, he then pretty much the rest of the series didn't make an out, and he hit one of those moonshot homers he's known to hit from time to time. And right after swinging and hitting that, he did went viral, that bat flip, where he flipped the bat like 8 times, sort of in the general direction of the Nationals dugout. It wasn't terrible. I didn't see it when it happened. I was kind of reading reports, and then I went and found the video and thinking it might be, something terrible. It wasn't as bad as I thought when I watched it. But yeah, it's definitely going to probably draw the ire of some former teammates. And I think this thing's going to get juicy. I can see in future matchups there might be some tension, maybe some inside pitches, or not even inside pitches, but he's going to get hit with a pitch. I think there'll be some trash talk eventually, and it'll be a little bit of WWE. I think Bryce is going to bring that. I think his antics sometimes will bring that from opponents, even if those opponents now are former teammates. So we'll see how this goes as the season goes on. Philly's early returns on their big-time investment are good. They're 5 or 6-1. They're scoring runs. Bryce is off to, like I said, a hot start, and their pitching's looking pretty good. So right now it looks like, I hate to say it as a Mets fan, it looks like the Phillies are definitely the early favorites to take that division and maybe make some noise in the postseason as well. Some other guys we've kind of forgot about, especially in the hobby. People have kind of moved on from them, but are actually off to pretty good, decent starts. Dansby Swanson in Atlanta, and Yohan Moncada with the White Sox. And I said in my baseball preview a few weeks back that this was definitely a make-or-break season for Yohan. I think he's struggled in the 2 years prior, and a lot of people have kind of got off that ship. And I think this is the year that he's either going to be what people tabbed him for, or people are just going to say he didn't live up to the billing. And right now he's playing really well. He's out of the gate quick. So it'll be interesting to see, can he maintain that pace or even similar of a pace in which Yoan Moncada do the White Sox have, the guy that they thought they got when they made that trade with the Red Sox, or what a lot of people think is someone that's just not going to live up to those high expectations that were thrust upon him. So we'll see how that goes. Dansby, he's not a highly rated prospect, not in the same breath as like a Moncada, but he is a top draft pick. The Braves gave up a lot to get him. Early returns were kind of not great. He actually was up and then got sent back down, and he's playing pretty well. And he's playing obviously in the shadows of a lot of stars, young stars in Atlanta, Acuna, Albies, and those guys, Freeman. And maybe that's what he needs, is the pressure's not on him now, and he can just go out there and play and perform and perform at a level maybe some thought he always could. And right now, he's doing that. But again, the season's so early, we'll see how it really plays out. The Final Four is set. If you had Duke and North Carolina in your final, like I did, you will not win your bracket challenge. So I'm now a spectator and just a fan of college basketball rather than rooting so I win my bracket. But you know what? As much as I like winning my bracket, and I've done it before and win a couple $100, and it's always a sweet deal, I'm not as disappointed as I normally would be. I like to see some of these other teams that we're not used to seeing at this stage be there and get a chance to win a national championship. So you got Auburn versus Virginia, Michigan State versus Texas Tech. If you look at these four teams, obviously Michigan State is kind of the granddad here, maybe probably the team most likely used to this kind of scenario. Texas Tech really playing well, good young ball club. Maybe probably not a surprise if they beat Michigan State. I think Michigan State is favored. That's going to be a tough one to call. I guess from a perspective of wanting to see a new team in there, I guess you would root for Texas Tech. On the other side of the bracket, you got Auburn, Virginia. Virginia, if you remember last year, they didn't forget. First number one seed ever to lose an opening game to a 16 after having a great regular season. And they've rebounded from that nightmare to make it back here to the Final Four, something that most people thought they'd be in last year before the unimaginable happened. So here they are, playing another upstart young team, a school maybe known more for football, but here's the Auburn basketball team. Charles Barkley's digging it in the Final Four for the first time in quite a while. So you got Auburn, Virginia, and you got Michigan State, Texas Tech. So I'm going to make my predictions. Obviously, that wasn't what I filled out on my bracket. I did have Virginia is actually the only team in the Final Four that I had in my Final Four. And so I'm going to, and that being said, I'm going to take Auburn over Virginia, and I'm going to take Michigan State over Texas Tech, although I wouldn't be shocked if Texas Tech beat Michigan State. So I'm going to call a Michigan State-Auburn championship Monday, and that'll be a good game. And I guess I'm going to go with Tom Izzo in the Michigan State to come out of this thing as the last team standing. Some controversy early in the tournament where he yelled at a player, and a lot of people were criticizing for him. How sort of ironic would it be if him and his boys won a national championship after that little bit of controversy? So we'll see. I love college basketball. If you heard my show, you probably could tell I like it even more than the NBA. So we'll see who's holding the championship up when all's said and done. And staying on the NCAA basketball tip, John Calipari signs a lifetime contract with Kentucky. It was rumored UCLA was trying to steal him away from Kentucky. So he's got what's being called a lifetime deal. Details are kind of sketchy. I don't know what a lifetime deal looks like. Maybe a Mercedes every year and a lot of millions of dollars. But, does that mean he can't leave? Again, I don't know all the parameters of this deal. They're just calling it a lifetime deal and that he doesn't want to coach anywhere else. So we'll see what happens there as well. And let's close the sports portion with some NFL football. The draft is coming up. And let's face it, it looks like Arizona's really dancing with Kyler Murray. It looks like he's going to be the first pick. What I don't understand, if that's the case, and it's no secret, it doesn't appear to be a real big secret, they probably should deal Josh Rosen to another team. I'm hearing they're trying, and I'm hearing they're just not getting what they want. Sort of to what, kind of like the Steelers wanted more for AB. No one wanted to pay up, and they had to settle. And I think probably that's what's going to have to happen with Arizona. I don't see how they can keep Rosen and Kyler Murray on the same roster. That's just going to be, to me, a recipe for disaster and probably not good to either quarterback. So if they're going with Murray, if that's their guy, they probably should deal Rosen and just take the best deal they can get and move on from him. And, how crazy is that? From 1 year, they draft him as the 10th overall pick, and they've already soured on him. Although I will tell you, I didn't have the podcast at the time, but I told friends that were NFL fans like myself that I thought out of all the quarterbacks being highly touted, he was the least likely to live up to that. And at early returns, it looks like that's going to be the case, and maybe Arizona feels the same and wants to get away from him. But, for all parties' sake, I hope they do that break soon. That way Rosen can get a change of scenery in a new locale, get a fresh start. Murray can come in without any kind of ominous presence, kind of hindering his experience. And Kingsbury, the coach, can get a fresh start with a guy he really wants. So if Arizona's smart, if Murray's the guy, go ahead, move Josh Rosen, get what the best deal you can, pick Murray if he's your guy, and let the chips fall where they may. It's like what happens every year. You're hearing now other quarterbacks are starting to move up this projected draft board. So names you're hearing moving up into the top 15, Drew Lock of Missouri, who most scouts predict will be a very good pro quarterback. Daniel Jones, who I'm hearing the Giants really like and are maybe willing to wait and grab him in the second round. Now it's being reported that there's a few other teams interested in enough in him where he may be selected earlier than that second round. So now the Giants have a decision to make. And even Will Greer, who hasn't really been discussed in terms of being a first round pick, has now name is starting to creep up into that first round. And there's always that other surprise quarterback that somebody goes ahead and grabs because they're scared they may not get him on the next turn. So we'll see how many of these quarterbacks are first rounders. Most pundits are predicting 3 to 4. I wouldn't be shocked if even 5 go, but I think 3 or 4 is probably the safe bet. So that's a wrap for episode 20. As always, we thank you for being so gracious with your time, for joining us and listening to the podcast wherever you are. Does not matter. Thank you sincerely. Some things coming up the Turnpike, some future episodes. We got some really good guests lined up as well. I'm sure there'll be more giveaways to come in the future, and you never know what else. That's the beauty of podcasting. So, with that being said, I'm going to close with the line from my favorite musician, Billy Joel, who would tell you, don't take any crap from anyone. Thanks, everyone. See you next week.
You've been listening to the Sports Card Nation podcast. Join host John Newman next week as he gives you another jam-packed episode of all things related to the sports card hobby. And a little extra fun, too. Don't forget to check out the show on Instagram at Sports Card Nation Podcast.